In a small, lively town where everyone seemed to know each other's stories, Maria Rodriguez lived a quiet life with her father, Carlos. Their little apartment was modest, tucked away on the edge of town, but it was filled with warmth and love. Carlos worked as the janitor at the local school, sweeping floors, cleaning classrooms, and making sure everything ran smoothly for the students and teachers. Though his job didn't pay much, he always wore a smile and greeted people kindly. He wanted nothing more than to give his daughter a good life, even if they had to stretch every penny. Maria was different from most kids her age. While many spent their free time playing video games or hanging out with friends, she loved exploring new things. Her favorite place in the entire school was the music room. During lunch breaks or after classes ended, she would linger by the door, peeking inside whenever she could. The sight of shiny instruments displayed neatly on shelves fascinated her. She often wondered what it would feel like to hold one, to create music that could fill the air with emotion. But those instruments felt like treasures from another world, far beyond her reach. One afternoon, while Carlos mopped the hallway near the teacher's lounge, Maria sat cross-legged on the floor outside the music room, sketching pictures of violins in her notebook. A group of teachers stepped out of the lounge, chatting and laughing loudly. One of them noticed Maria and smirked. "Hey, kid," he said mockingly, "why don't you try playing the violin? Maybe you'll become famous someday." His words were met with snickers from the others. They weren't serious. They didn't think someone like Maria, the janitor's daughter, could ever do anything extraordinary. But Maria didn't hear the sarcasm in their voices. To her, this was an invitation, a challenge to prove herself. She looked up, her eyes wide with excitement. "Really?" she asked softly, clutching her notebook tighter. "Do you think I can?" The teachers exchanged amused glances, but quickly brushed her off. "Sure, why not?" One of them replied carelessly before walking away. They didn't mean it, of course. It was just a joke, something to pass the time during their break. Little did they know, their careless comment would light a fire in Maria's heart. That evening, as Maria helped her father clean up after dinner, she couldn't stop thinking about the violin. She imagined herself standing on a stage, bow in hand, captivating an audience with her music. "Papa," she said suddenly, "what does a violin sound like?" Carlos paused, surprised by the question. He didn't know much about music, but he remembered hearing a street musician play once. "It sounds beautiful," he replied thoughtfully, "like happiness and sadness all mixed together." Maria's face lit up. "I want to learn how to play it," she declared firmly. Carlos smiled, though worry flickered in his eyes. They'd barely had enough money for groceries, let alone an expensive instrument. Still, he didn't want to crush her dream. "We'll see, mijita," he said gently. "Maybe one day." From that moment on, Maria's mind was set. She started saving every coin she found, dreaming of the day she could buy her own violin. Every time she passed the music room, she studied the instruments through the glass, imagining herself holding one. She didn't realize yet just how hard the journey ahead would be, or how much strength it would take to turn her dream into reality. But deep down, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to give up. Carlos couldn't stop thinking about Maria's words that night. Her excitement was impossible to ignore, and it tugged at his heart. He wanted to support her dream, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on him. A violin wasn't just expensive, it was a luxury they simply couldn't afford. Still, as he tucked Maria into bed, he promised himself that he would find a way to make her happy, no matter how small the gesture might be. The next day, after finishing his work at the school, Carlos began his search. He visited every thrift store in town, rummaging through piles of old clothes, broken electronics, and dusty books. The shopkeepers recognized him as the hard-working janitor and greeted him warmly, but none of them had what he was looking for. Days turned into weeks, and just when Carlos was about to give up hope, he stumbled upon something unexpected. In the corner of a dimly lit second-hand shop, Hidden beneath a stack of old magazines was a violin. It wasn't shiny or new. Its surface was scratched, and one of the strings looked frayed, but it was playable. The shopkeeper told him it had been sitting there for years, forgotten by its previous owner. Carlos didn't hesitate. He used almost all the money he had saved for emergencies to buy it, knowing this was a chance to give Maria something truly special. When he brought the violin home, Maria's eyes widened with disbelief. "Is this for me?" she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. Carlos nodded, handing her the battered case. "It's not perfect," he admitted, "but it's yours. You can do anything with it if you put your heart into it." Maria hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she felt like someone believed in her dream, even if that someone was her dad. That night, Maria carefully opened the case and examined the violin. Though it wasn't the polished instrument she had seen in the music room, it felt magical to her. She ran her fingers over the worn wood, imagining the melodies it could produce. But there was one problem. She had no idea how to play. There were no teachers willing to offer lessons for free, and buying instructional books was out of the question. Determined not to let this obstacle stop her, Maria turned to the only resource she had, the internet. Late at night, after finishing her homework and helping her father clean up, Maria sat by the glow of their old computer. She watched countless videos of violinists explaining techniques, finger placements, and bow movements. At first, it was frustrating. The notes she produced sounded more like screeches than music, and her fingers ached from pressing too hard on the strings. Sometimes she wanted to cry, especially when she compared herself to the skilled musicians online. But every time she thought about quitting, she remembered her father's sacrifice and the look of pride on his face when he gave her the violin. Maria practiced tirelessly, often staying up until the early hours of the morning. Her hands blistered, and her arms grew sore, but she refused to give up. Slowly, the harsh screeches began to soften into recognizable notes. She started with simple tunes, humming along as she played. Each small improvement filled her with hope. By the third week, she could play a basic melody without stopping, a victory that made her heart soar. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Neighbors sometimes heard faint strains of music drifting from her window late at night. Some shook their heads, thinking it was just noise, while others peeked through the curtains, curious about the source. Even Carlos, who usually went to bed early, stayed awake longer than usual, listening to his daughter's progress. He knew she was working harder than ever before, and it made him proud. As the days passed, Maria began to feel a connection with the violin. It wasn't just an instrument anymore. It was a part of her. Every note she played carried a piece of her soul, and every mistake taught her something new. She dreamed of the day she could perform in front of an audience, proving to everyone, including herself, that she was capable of greatness. Little did she know, her moment was closer than she thought. Word about Maria's late-night violin practice began to spread around the school like wildfire. Students whispered about the mysterious music echoing through the empty hallways each morning before class started. Some were curious, others skeptical, but everyone had an opinion. The teachers who had joked about her playing the violin weeks earlier now found themselves at the center of hushed conversations in the staff room. Their initial mockery had turned into a mix of disbelief and discomfort as they realized Maria was actually trying and succeeding. "She's still at it," one teacher muttered during lunch break, glancing toward the hallway where Maria often practiced. "I thought she'd give up after a few days." Another chimed in, shaking their head. "Honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. She doesn't even know what she's doing." Laughter rippled through the group, though it sounded forced, almost guilty. Deep down, some of them couldn't help but feel uneasy about how casually they had dismissed her dreams. But not everyone shared their disdain. Mrs. Harper, the art teacher, had been quietly observing Maria from afar. Unlike the others, she saw something remarkable in the young girl, a determination that reminded her of her own struggles when she first started teaching. One morning, Unable to resist any longer, Mrs. Harper decided to approach Maria. She found her sitting on the floor near the music room, carefully tuning her battered violin while scribbling notes in a worn notebook. "Good morning, Maria," Mrs. Harper said gently, kneeling beside her. Startled, Maria looked up, clutching the violin close to her chest. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Harper," she replied shyly. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I just wanted to practice a little before classes start." Mrs. Harper smiled warmly. "You're not disturbing anyone, dear. In fact, I think you're inspiring people." Maria blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. No one had ever called her inspiring before. Mrs. Harper noticed the stack of handwritten sheets next to Maria and picked one up. It was covered in annotations, notes Maria had jotted down from online tutorials, along with reminders to herself about finger positions and bow techniques. "This is impressive work," Mrs. Harper said sincerely. "Where did you learn all this?" Maria hesitated, then admitted, "Mostly from videos online. And trial and error, I guess." Moved by her perseverance, Mrs. Harper made a decision. That afternoon, she went home and dug out old sheet music from her college days. The next day, she handed it to Maria with a smile. "Here," she said, "these are some beginner pieces I used to practice. They might help you improve faster." Maria stared at the neatly printed pages, her eyes wide with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Harper," she whispered. "I'll take good care of them." As the weeks passed, Maria pored over the sheet music, practicing until her fingers felt numb. With Mrs. Harper's guidance, she began tackling more complex melodies, her confidence growing with each passing day. Meanwhile, the whispers among students and teachers continued. Some admired her grit, while others remained critical. But Maria paid little attention to any of it. Her focus was singular: to become better, no matter how long it took. One afternoon, as Maria played softly in the hallway, a small crowd gathered unnoticed. A few students paused, listening intently, while others recorded short clips on their phones. Even some teachers lingered nearby, pretending to organize papers but secretly captivated by the hauntingly beautiful sound. For the first time, doubt crept into their minds. Had they underestimated her? Could this girl, whose dream they once mocked, actually be talented? Though she didn't realize it yet, Maria was slowly changing the way people saw her and themselves. Her journey was becoming more than just a personal triumph. It was a lesson in humility, resilience, and the power of believing in someone, even when the odds seemed impossible. The school's annual talent show was just around the corner, and posters plastered across the hallways announced it with bold letters: "Discover your talent." For most students, it was an opportunity to showcase skills they had honed for years: singing, dancing, or performing comedy routines. But for Maria, it felt like a chance to step out of the shadows and prove that her dream wasn't just a fleeting hobby. Encouraged by Mrs. Harper, who had quietly nudged her to sign up, Maria finally mustered the courage to put her name on the list. As the days leading up to the event ticked by, nervous excitement bubbled inside her. She practiced harder than ever, determined to make every note count. Her fingers moved faster, her bow strokes grew steadier, and her confidence began to blossom. Still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. What if people laughed at her? What if she made a mistake and embarrassed herself? And worse, her father. The thought weighed heavily on her, but she pushed through, reminding herself why she started this journey in the first place. On the night of the talent show, the school auditorium buzzed with energy. Students filled the seats, chatting animatedly while teachers sat in the front row, looking slightly bored but ready to clap politely. When the host called Maria's name, a ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Some students giggled, recalling the old joke about the janitor's daughter playing the violin. Others leaned forward, curious to see what would happen. Teachers exchanged knowing glances, their expressions a mix of skepticism and mild amusement. Maria stepped onto the stage, clutching her battered violin tightly. The spotlight blinded her for a moment, and she could feel dozens of eyes boring into her. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and looked out into the audience. In the dim light, she spotted her father sitting near the back, his face glowing with pride. Next to him was Mrs. Harper, giving her a small, reassuring nod. That tiny gesture gave Maria the strength she needed. She raised the violin to her chin, adjusted the bow, and closed her eyes. For a brief second, the world disappeared. All that remained was the music she had poured her soul into creating. Then she began to play. The first note hung in the air, pure and clear, silencing the murmurs instantly. As Maria moved into the melody, the entire room froze. It wasn't perfect. There were slight hesitations and moments where her fingers faltered. But it didn't matter. The emotion behind her playing was undeniable. Each note carried the weight of her struggles, her late-night practices, and her unwavering determination. The scratches on her violin told a story of resilience, and now so did her music. By the time she reached the climax of the piece, tears glistened in her eyes. The audience sat motionless, completely absorbed. Even the teachers who had once mocked her watched in stunned silence, their earlier smirks replaced by looks of awe. When Maria played the final note, the auditorium erupted into applause. It started softly, almost hesitant, but quickly grew into thunderous cheers. People stood up, clapping wildly, as Maria lowered her violin, trembling with emotion. For a moment, she stood frozen, overwhelmed by the response. Then she saw her father rise from his seat, his hands clapping harder than anyone else's. His smile said everything. Pride, love, and admiration all wrapped into one. Maria's knees nearly buckled under the weight of the moment, but she managed to bow deeply. Her cheeks flushed with gratitude. Backstage, as other performers congratulated her, Maria struggled to process what had just happened. She had walked onto that stage expecting ridicule and left it basking in admiration. Though she didn't realize it yet, her performance had changed something far greater than just the opinions of her peers. It had planted seeds of inspiration in everyone who witnessed it, and those seeds would soon grow into something extraordinary. The applause in the auditorium lingered long after Maria stepped off the stage, her heart still racing from the overwhelming response. For a moment, she stood frozen in the wings, clutching her violin like it might disappear if she let go. Her hands trembled, not from nerves this time, but from disbelief. She had walked onto that stage expecting judgment, maybe even laughter, but instead, she was met with an outpouring of admiration she never imagined possible. It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream. As the other performers took their turns on stage, Maria retreated to a quiet corner backstage, trying to process what had just happened. Students who had once ignored or teased her now approached her with wide eyes and hesitant smiles. "That was incredible," one girl said shyly, holding out her phone. "Can I take a picture with you?" Maria blinked, caught off guard by the request. Slowly, she nodded, forcing a smile as the girl posed beside her. More students followed, each one eager to congratulate her. Some admitted they hadn't believed she could pull it off, while others confessed they were inspired by her courage. Meanwhile, in the audience, the teachers sat in stunned silence. The same group that had laughed at the idea of Maria playing the violin weeks earlier now exchanged uneasy glances. Their guilt hung heavy in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. They had underestimated her, not just her talent, but her determination and resilience. Mrs. Harper noticed their discomfort and leaned over to whisper, "Sometimes we don't realize how much our words can shape someone's journey." Her tone wasn't accusatory, but the message hit home. One teacher buried his face in his hands, shaking his head slightly, while another muttered under her breath, "We really messed up." Backstage, Maria finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. She thought about all the late nights spent practicing, the blisters on her fingers, and the times she had doubted herself. Every struggle had led her to this moment, and now it felt worth it. But amidst the joy, there was also sadness, a bittersweet ache, knowing how far she'd come despite the odds stacked against her. She thought about her father, sitting proudly in the audience, and wondered if he realized how much his support meant to her. Without him, she wouldn't have had the chance to hold a violin, let alone play one. When the talent show ended, Maria joined the crowd filing out of the auditorium. Her father was waiting for her near the exit, his arms open wide. She ran to him, hugging him tightly as tears streamed down her face. "You were amazing, Mija," Carlos whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Maria buried her face in his shoulder, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. No matter what happened next, she knew she had already achieved something remarkable. She had shown everyone, including herself, that dreams could come true with hard work and belief. The days following the talent show brought unexpected changes. News of Maria's performance spread quickly, not just within the school but throughout the community. Local newspapers wrote articles about the janitor's daughter who silenced critics with her violin. Teachers who had once mocked her began stopping by to congratulate her, their apologies awkward but sincere. "Maria, I had no idea you were so talented," one of them said during lunch break. Another added, "If you ever need help with anything, let me know." Though their words couldn't undo the past, they showed a willingness to make amends. Mrs. Harper continued to mentor Maria, helping her refine her skills and encouraging her to apply for scholarships. She introduced Maria to contacts in the music world, opening doors she never dreamed existed. Slowly but surely, Maria started believing that her talent wasn't just a fluke. It was something real, something worth pursuing. And though she still faced challenges, she carried the memory of that night in the auditorium as proof that she could overcome anything life threw her way. The days following the talent show were a whirlwind for Maria. What had started as a quiet dream in the corners of her life had suddenly exploded into something bigger than she ever imagined. The praise kept coming, from classmates who now greeted her with respect, from teachers who lingered after class to offer encouragement, and even from strangers in the community who recognized her story. It was overwhelming, but also deeply motivating. For the first time, Maria felt like she belonged somewhere, not just as the janitor's daughter, but as someone with a gift worth celebrating. Mrs. Harper wasted no time in helping Maria take her talent to the next level. She brought stacks of sheet music tailored to Maria's skill level and introduced her to advanced techniques she hadn't yet tried. "You've got raw talent," Mrs. Harper told her one afternoon during practice, "but now it's time to polish it." Under her guidance, Maria learned how to read complex compositions, master intricate bowing patterns, and add emotion to every note she played. Her progress was remarkable, fueled by both her natural ability and relentless determination. But perhaps the most transformative moment came when Mrs. Harper handed Maria an application form for a prestigious youth orchestra competition. "I think you're ready," she said firmly, though Maria hesitated at first. "Me? Compete against other musicians?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. "You already proved yourself on that stage," Mrs. Harper reminded her. "Don't let fear hold you back now." Encouraged by her mentor and secretly cheered on by her father, Maria decided to take the leap. She spent weeks preparing for the audition, pouring every ounce of energy into perfecting her piece. Late nights became even later, and her fingers grew calloused again, but she didn't mind. This wasn't just about winning. It was about proving to herself that she could keep climbing higher, no matter where she started. When the day of the competition arrived, Maria stood backstage alongside dozens of other young musicians, many of whom came from wealthy families and attended elite music schools. They carried polished instruments worth thousands of dollars, while Maria clutched her battered violin, its scratches telling stories of resilience. Some competitors sneered when they saw her, dismissing her presence as a fluke, but Maria held her head high, remembering the journey that brought her here. Her performance was nothing short of breathtaking. As she played, the judges leaned forward, captivated by the passion in her music. When she finished, the room erupted into applause, not just from the audience, but from fellow competitors who couldn't help but admire her skill. Though she didn't win first place, she earned a standing ovation and a scholarship to attend a summer program at a renowned conservatory. It was more than she had dared to hope for. Back home, news of her success spread quickly. Teachers who had once mocked her now approached her with genuine remorse, their apologies heartfelt. "Maria, we were wrong about you," one of them admitted during a quiet moment after class. "You've shown us what true perseverance looks like." Others attended her concerts, sitting quietly in the audience as if trying to make up for their past mistakes. Maria accepted their words graciously, choosing forgiveness over bitterness. She knew holding on to anger wouldn't change the past. It was better to focus on building a brighter future. As Maria prepared to leave for the conservatory, she reflected on how far she'd come. From practicing in empty hallways to performing on stages that once seemed impossible to reach, her journey was proof that greatness could emerge from humble beginnings. And though she was excited for what lay ahead, she vowed never to forget where she came from, or the people who had supported her along the way. Maria's journey didn't stop at the conservatory. It only grew bigger and brighter. The summer program was a whirlwind of challenges and opportunities, pushing her to new heights she hadn't thought possible. Surrounded by talented musicians from all over the country, Maria initially felt out of place. Many of her peers came from privileged backgrounds, with years of private lessons and expensive instruments. But Maria carried something they didn't: the fire of resilience forged through hardship. Her battered violin became a symbol of her strength, earning respect even from those who had doubted her at first. At the conservatory, Maria worked harder than ever before. Days started early with rigorous practice sessions, followed by hours of theory classes and master classes led by world-renowned musicians. In the evenings, she joined informal jam sessions with other students, where everyone shared their unique styles and stories. It was during these moments that Maria truly shone. Her music wasn't just technically sound. It carried raw emotion that resonated deeply with listeners. One evening, after an impromptu performance in the dorm lounge, a fellow student approached her. "Your playing, it feels like it comes straight from your soul," he said sincerely. For Maria, this compliment meant more than any trophy or certificate ever could. By the end of the program, Maria had earned not only technical mastery, but also lifelong friendships and mentors who believed in her potential. Encouraged by her progress, one of the instructors urged her to apply for scholarships to prestigious music schools. "You have a rare gift," he told her. "Don't let anything stand in your way." With Mrs. Harper's help, Maria submitted applications to several top institutions, each essay reflecting her passion and perseverance. When acceptance letters began arriving, tears streamed down her face as she read them aloud to her father. She had been awarded a full scholarship to a renowned conservatory, a dream she once thought was impossible. As Maria's career blossomed, she never forgot her roots. During breaks from school, she returned home to perform for her community, often inviting local children to join her on stage. She spoke openly about her struggles, encouraging others to believe in themselves, no matter their circumstances. "If I can do it," she would say, "so can you." Her concerts became events people looked forward to, drawing crowds far beyond what anyone expected. Even the teachers who had once mocked her attended regularly, sitting quietly in the audience with expressions of pride and regret. Back at the conservatory, Maria continued to rise. She won regional competitions, performed at charity events, and even landed a spot in a professional ensemble. Each achievement brought new opportunities, but Maria remained humble, always crediting her success to her father's sacrifices and Mrs. Harper's unwavering support. Carlos beamed with pride every time he saw his daughter take the stage, knowing how much effort had gone into getting there. "This is just the beginning," he whispered to himself during one performance, his eyes glistening with tears. Even the skeptics from Maria's past found themselves changed by her journey. Teachers who had laughed at her ambition now approached her with genuine admiration, apologizing for their earlier behavior. "We were wrong about you, Maria," one of them admitted after a concert. You've shown us what true talent and determination look like." Maria smiled warmly, choosing forgiveness over resentment. She knew holding on to anger wouldn't change the past. It was better to focus on inspiring others. Through it all, Maria stayed grounded, using her platform to advocate for underprivileged children. She partnered with organizations to provide free music lessons and donated instruments to schools in need. Her story became a beacon of hope, proving that greatness could emerge from the unlikeliest places, and that dreams, no matter how distant they seemed, were always worth pursuing. Years passed, and Maria's journey came full circle in ways she never imagined. Now a celebrated violinist, she traveled the world, performing on grand stages that once seemed like distant fantasies. Her name appeared in newspapers and magazines, her concerts sold out months in advance, and her music touched hearts across continents. But despite her success, Maria never forgot where it all began: the small town, the modest apartment, and the battered violin her father had bought for her from a dusty thrift store. One day, Maria received an invitation to perform at her old school. The principal hoped her return would inspire current students, many of whom faced challenges similar to hers. For Maria, this was more than just another concert. It was a chance to give back to the place that shaped her, even if it hadn't always been kind. She accepted immediately, eager to share her story with the next generation. The evening of the performance arrived, and the school auditorium buzzed with excitement. Students filled the seats, their eyes wide with anticipation. Teachers sat in the front row, some of them the same ones who had mocked her years ago. Carlos, now older but still spry, sat proudly in the audience, clutching the program tightly in his hands. Maria stepped onto the stage wearing a simple yet elegant dress, her trusted violin, now polished and repaired, resting gently against her shoulder. As she raised the bow, the room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. Maria began to play, weaving together melodies that told her story. Each note carried fragments of her past, the struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt and joy. When she reached the final crescendo, tears shimmered in her eyes, and the audience erupted into applause. It wasn't just the beauty of the music that moved them. It was the realization of how far she had come, and what she represented. A testament to resilience, hard work, and the power of believing in oneself. After the performance, Maria addressed the crowd. "I stand here today not because I was born with privilege or talent," she said softly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm here because I refused to give up, even when people doubted me, even when I doubted myself." She paused, looking directly at the teachers who had once laughed at her dream. "To the students listening tonight, know this: your circumstances don't define you. Your dreams are valid, no matter how impossible they seem. And if someone tells you otherwise, prove them wrong." Her words echoed through the auditorium, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. Afterward, students lined up to speak with her, asking questions about her journey and sharing their own aspirations. Some dreamed of becoming musicians, while others wanted to be doctors, engineers, or artists. Maria listened intently, offering advice and encouragement to each one. She reminded them that success wasn't about fame or wealth. It was about finding purpose and staying true to yourself. Even the teachers who had underestimated her approached her afterward, their apologies heartfelt. "Maria, we were wrong about you," one of them admitted, his voice trembling. "You've taught us lessons we'll carry for the rest of our lives." Maria smiled warmly, accepting their words without bitterness. Forgiveness, she believed, was as much a part of her journey as perseverance. As the night drew to a close, Maria walked outside with her father, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. Carlos placed a hand on her shoulder, his pride evident in every wrinkle around his eyes. "You've done so much, Mija," he said quietly. "But I think the best part is seeing how you've helped others believe in themselves." Maria nodded, realizing he was right. Her greatest achievement wasn't the awards or accolades. It was the inspiration she left behind. Maria's legacy continued to grow. She founded a foundation to provide free music education to underprivileged children, ensuring others wouldn't have to face the same barriers she did. Her story became a beacon of hope, reminding people everywhere that greatness could emerge from humble beginnings, and that sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations.